very beautiful, intimate, space here, and 1,000 people watching live at home. Minimum 1,000 people. So welcome to the first edition of Sex Cafe with our topic Pussy Power. And I am Tinka. I'm super happy that Roger initiated this and invited me to share my knowledge and experience about pussy power. And I'm really happy to share what that means to me and share many interesting information. And first of all, I'm super curious to also hear from you. Oh, I would really like to start with a little bit of interactiveness, and I would really love you to share expressions that you know for pussy, vulva, vagina, and you can just throw some wordings and names that you know, or maybe also names that you got to know when you were little.
Good, synonyms.
Synonyms, whatever, yeah. Kant.
Möse.
Möse, yeah.
Schnackli.
Schnackli. That's cute, that's Swiss German.
Yeah.
Momo.
Momo.
Mushi. Japanese.
Is it Japanese mushi?
Mushi.
Really? Ah, okay.
Good. In Dutch. Minat.
Minat?
Yeah.
I've never heard that before.
It's a very small cat.
Ah.
It's French.
It's Minou.
Minou.
Minou. Yeah.
Figa.
Chat. Con. Yeah, Busche.
You know many, huh?
It's Portuguese.
Portuguese.
There's like a little small.
Yeah.
Fufum.
Yeah, that's really cool. Also collecting from the different languages.
Yoni.
Yoni.
The thing downstairs.
The thing downstairs. The part downstairs. Yeah.
Schlitzli sagt man nicht.
Schlitzli?
Schlitzli. Schlitzli.
Schlitzli, yeah.
Und Schlitz. Schlitz.
Yeah, I've heard that too. When I was about 7 or 8 years old, I heard it the first time and I was like, Schlitz.
Sandwich.
Ah, yeah, sandwich.
A taco.
A taco.
Pink taco.
Pink taco.
Really good.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you already said vagina.
I think I haven't said vagina. Yeah. Well, vagina is quite common.
Did you say Muschel?
Muschel?
Yeah, in German.
Yeah, in German I know. Muschi.
And Venus sometimes.
Yeah. Muschi, then there's Fotze, Möse. These are a bit, yeah.
Fritz an sich.
My papaya.
Maya papaya, yeah. Papaya is also common. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, what I find is a pity is that we don't...
Second mouth.
The second mouth, that's a good one. It's not that common, but that's a good one. I really like that. Because indeed, like the genital area, the vagina is really connected to our mouth. Like our whole body is a system, so there are connections everywhere. But yeah, these are quite quite connected, and also the Muttermund and the mouth. That's also why most people make sounds while having sex. Or it's even more pleasurable to make sounds while having sex, and during birth too, because if we open our mouths, then it also relaxes the pelvic floor muscles. Yeah. But I will get to that a little later. Yeah, what I find is a bit a pity is that for the whole structure, like the whole genital area or the pleasure area of the female body, there's no expression that really frames everything. Now we mostly know the difference between vulva and vagina. Basically, yeah, like the vulva is the outer part that we see. I brought mine 2 times. This is just a copy. And the vagina is the inner part, but there's even much more that belongs to the whole arousal system of the female body. It's not just the vulva and the vagina, it's not just the clitoris, it's also the perineum. There are many parts inside that are like spongy areas that are also responsible for the arousal. And yoni is a Sanskrit word, and yoni is the only word I know that really means the whole thing. And also the cervix. And hey! Hello! Hi! Because there are many different parts that are responsible and very important for our female sexuality. And today I will share a lot about that. So, but first I want to take you with me on a journey, on my personal journey, so that you a little bit get to know who I am. So I'm Tinka, and I'm really specialized in the topics of embodiment, pleasure, and authentic sexuality. And well, my journey to get here already started when I was very little. I think I was maybe 3 years old, and I had this little pillow, and I would just cuddle with this pillow and sucking my thumb, which is already a kind of a pleasurable action. And I had this little pillow, and one day I found out that when I kind of make a little knot out of this pillow and I put my body on that pillow and I started moving my body, it was so pleasurable, and I really liked that. And I really already had my first, let's say little orgasms. And it was very playful to get to know my body, and I was like very curious about what happens there, because it was just such a magical feeling. And when I was 5 years old, when I was about 5 years old, I was kind of curious about what sexuality is, and I wanted to know all about how and why do people have sex, and the whole thing with the babies was very interesting. So I asked my elder sister, she's 12 years older than I am, and she told me everything she knew. So when I was 5, I really knew a lot. But when my mom found out, she was not amused at all, because she really wanted to protect my innocence. And my mom was very Catholic. And also, she did not really have so many good experiences with her sexuality, and like my dad was the only man she ever had sex with, besides one time when she was raped. So her relationship to her sexuality was like, not the most loving and friendly relationship. So she really wanted to protect me and my childish innocence, and she was really angry at my sister that my sister shared her knowledge with me when I was 5. So then I started to feel like, okay, wow, there must be something dangerous about that topic. And However, curiosity was always my fuel, and I thought, okay, but something that is so interesting, so I need to find my ways to get more knowledge about that. And also, when I discovered my body, it felt so pleasurable, so that I thought, okay, maybe I should just do forbidden things and not tell anyone. And I was about 6 years old, and then I would just play with my cushion, my pillow, and my mom entered the room. And she was shocked seeing me masturbating, as I was this tiny little sweet girl. And she was like, "You may never do that again." So what happened to me, that was the first time I really felt guilt. Like, okay, I did something wrong. And out of this guilt, a sense of shame developed out of that. Like, okay, I really need to do that in secret because I cannot tell anyone. It's such a bad thing, but it feels so good. So I never stopped, luckily. And quite early I realized, like, wow, something that must be hidden must be so full of miracles and myths, and I really want to get to know them all. So I never gave up. And yeah, when I grew older and also discovered my sexuality, so I also remember that I was the girl sharing my knowledge to all my allies at school, like in the first, second grade. So it was already a bit, also I kind of had the stamp of the girl that knew too much. And luckily it didn't really help me down. So when I was then a little bit older, then I bought all the Bravo Heftli and read them and masturbated, seeing naked bodies. And like my curiosity was always very alive. And then I had my first sexual experiences. And I felt like, of course in school I was educated and I learned a lot about sexuality and Fortpflanzung. And I thought there must be so much more and we just don't know about that. And I was a bit disappointed that no one could really teach me when I was 16, 17, 18. So when I was 18, I went to the sex shop and I thought maybe they could help me out and explain many things to me, and they did not really help me out because it was like so over-sexualized. And then I just said, I don't know so much about sex, and just give me the best thing you have. And then I bought my first vibrator. It was such a pink, big thing, like a rabbit vibrator with a lot of functions, very loud, with batteries and cheap silicone material. And I called it Rambo. Because also everything I knew about sex is about penetration, and maybe Rambo can teach me more than I already knew. And what happened? Rambo did a good job. Turned out to be my best friend for a long time. And at one point I really found out that Rambo was so strong that parts of my body, like the sensitivity changed, and I was not that, like I a little bit lost the ability to arouse myself quickly. So it took longer, and then I needed to put up the volume of Rambo until he gave everything, and it was like, okay, that cannot be it. And my explorations just went on and on and on, and I also discovered that most of the time the reasons why I had sex were curiosity on the one hand, and on the other hand it was a bit to feed my ego. So the sex was not the best sex I had, but everything that came before was kind of interesting. And I also used men, as these times I was like the cis hetero girl, I used men to give me something and to a little bit feed my ego, and I found out, oh, they adore me, they want to have sex with me, and that really felt like, yeah, I'm lovable, I'm worthy. And so I feel I became a bit addicted to going out, flirting with men, and as soon as I realized that they wanted me, I really felt good and wanted, and the sex was like not that satisfying. So why? I guess because I didn't really know myself so well, and I guess because no one ever taught me so much about my own sexuality and how my body functions and what I really need. So my studies went on, and after the Bravo Heftli, I moved over to some more educative material and several books. And later, I studied systemic dance therapy, which was a lot about embodiment and also the communication between the mind and the body, and how to use the body to also resolve some topics. And I felt like, yeah, wow, super interesting, but what about sex? Why is sex excluded? It was never a topic in this education, so I thought, okay, so I can specialize on that. And then I started also collecting more knowledge and specialized on how embodiment and dance therapy can support knowing my own sexuality. That was very, very interesting. And then when I lived in Zurich, I started to work in a very luxurious female erotic shop at the Kanzleistraße, and it is closing now. That's a pity. It's called Sensuelle Boutique, a very high-class, very feminine, elegant boutique where it was not just about selling the best sex toys. It was more a holistic approach, and so I learned a lot there. And afterwards, I also got myself a training in sexological bodywork to really work more on the body and with the body, and also to explore my sexuality in a better way. And so this is me and my story, my background. And so what I learned so far is that I was always wondering why the whole society is so oversexed, because everywhere we go, sex is kind of thrown at us. Huh? Every advertisement is full of sexism, every movie is full of sexism, and indeed we don't know so much more. And it just shows a tiny little picture of what sexuality, and especially female sexuality, is about. And when we are seeing these Hollywood movies and there are erotic scenes, like the females, they come and it's super juicy and everything is just perfect and they're having orgasms together and everything is super fine. And I found out the reality is just different, or at least my reality was different. So then I studied more and more. And let's go back in time a little bit. I would love to share just some tiny bits out of history. So thousands of years ago, the pussy, the yoni, was sacred. And it was a sacred space, a sacred place, and the female goddesses were worshipped, because what we as women can do is we create life with our bodies. Like, we all came out of a yoni, or at least we came in through a yoni. Things just changed from this sacredness where women were worshipped, and there are really old statues showing these fertility objects where most likely female female postures showing their vulvas, and there are temples all around the world where you can see that vulvas were sacred and also in sacred spaces. And then what happened? There happened like a huge shift, like 400 to 300 before Christ, like the Greek antique times, where several things just shifted in culture also. And for example, in the Greek antique times, sexuality was mainly shared from men with boys. And that was a very common thing. And then like the wives were more for really giving birth to the children and taking care of the homes. And female pleasure was alive, but only with the prostitutes, the Eritrea. And so I questioned myself, what happened to the female power? So why were women just kind of suppressed, and also they did not really have access to knowledge and education? And a good way to control a human being is over controlling sexuality and through not letting them know themselves. So I feel what got lost over the times is that especially women did not have access to education and to knowledge, and also not knowing themselves, and like pleasure was just taken out and taken away. And also like the pleasurable female is not as worthy as the man. And we also have that in the language. Why is the vagina called vagina? Do you know where the expression comes from? It's from a Latin expression, and in German it's called Scheide. Yeah, because there's the sword, a very masculine symbol of power, and there's the Scheide, and the sword goes into the Scheide. So this is where this expression comes from, and also this whole power dynamic it developed. Yeah. So then history went on doing its thing, and I just need to check my notes because I'm really bad at dates, and I know some people really get turned on by exact numbers and dates and years, and I always need to write them down to give them the thrill. So
Thousands that are on that.
So I made a few notes. Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah, okay, as times went on, of course also medicine and anatomy developed over time, and already 1672, exact date, there was a doctor, Régnier de Graaf, and he already drawed very specific drawings, anatomic drawings of the clitoris. 1672. Then it disappeared. 1844, there was a German guy, Georg Ludwig Courbet, and he also showed very specific the clitoris and all the nerves, and he explained a lot about the erectile function of the clitoris and the female pleasure organs, and it disappeared again. So why would someone make these super exciting news disappear? It was a lot about making that knowledge not as important. So what happened over time in society, like women were kind of, women learned that they are not as important as men are. And we already or still know it, like we live in a man's world. So many things are just made for male bodies, and the male body is the standard, and the like female body and the female pleasure system also is just not that important. So it was quite easy to suppress female empowerment. And why this talk is about pussy power is because I really feel that this whole movement and the whole like time shift we're in, it's a lot about conquering back the power. And I see so many offerings that are about female empowerment, and I feel so female empowerment is such a strong thing, and there's a lot of work to do. And like for me, it's also very important to empower the pussies and to spread more knowledge about our female pleasure, because this world definitely needs more pleasure and less functionality. So 1877, for example, and when we all know that the church, Catholic Church, was not really sex positive, besides many other religions. And I feel, as far as I know, that like the tantric philosophy is kind of the only one that is very spiritual and includes sexuality as a part of our aliveness. And end of the 18th century, 1877. So who of you know the Kellogg's cornflakes? Cereals are very good and healthy. And the guy who invented the cornflakes, he had a brother, and this brother was a doctor, and he was very thrilled to propagate a holistic approach, like for health. And he really wrote so many books about holistic health and so on. And he was one of the strongest fighters against masturbation. Telling everyone that masturbation is the unhealthiest thing ever, and it has very bad side effects. For example, general infirmity and mood swings, stiff joints, bad posture, acne, epilepsy, and 30 more. So already at that time, we really feel that sexuality was very suppressed. And indeed, so how can we get to know ourselves if we don't know our bodies? And to get to know our bodies, we also need to touch them somehow, right? Because we can read a lot, but if we don't experience all the sensations, then we have not the whole access of our whole being. Yes, and 10 years later, in Gray's Anatomy, which is one of the anatomy Bibles, and was at that time, in 1887, the clitoris and the whole structure was shown, and it disappeared again. So there were several attempts, to really spread all the knowledge, and someone just magically managed to erase that. So black screen again. And since 1998, it's back again. We can celebrate.
98?
Yeah, 1998, it is back again. And since then, nowadays, I feel like I read that 2022 was the year when really all the anatomy books that are like the current Auflage have that knowledge inside. So a few years ago, yeah. That's why I just remember, like 10 years ago, I never saw a clitoris and I didn't know anything about it. And nowadays, it's much more popular. Like it's really shown everywhere. We have one here. We have a beautiful yoni or pussy, and we have a wonderful clitoris here. Very beautiful. A masterpiece. Yeah. And also what I would love to share is like also historically, like there were several males who seemed to be very, very intelligent, and there was also like the opinion spread that that a vagina is the opposite of a penis. Like the vagina is a penis just from the other side, like inside of the body. So that female are the weaker beings because they don't carry their penis in front of them and they have it inside. And indeed, it's not completely wrong. Because like evolutionary or the biology, if we are in the first state of our fertile development, when we are little embryos, like during the first weeks, we really have the same tissues, and then it takes a while until everything just falls at place, and then the penis or the pussy develops. And in fact, it's just like the same toolkit, kind of. And I can show that here also. We have one penis and we have one, vulva, vagina. So we have the glands of the penis, this part, and this is like the similar tissue toolkit as the glands of the clitoris. And this is the part we all know, or we get to know quite early, because this is the part females can reach quite well. Yeah, we have the outer lips, and I also don't like to call it Schamlippen, which is one of the German expressions, like area of shame. But the outer lips is the Hodensack, the scrotum. It's the same tissue. The inner lips is the skin of the penis, and there's the hood over the clita, which is the Vorhaut. This part. Yeah. And then the whole Schwellkörper, the bulb inside the penis, is this part of the clita, of the clitoris. And these are bulbs, erectile tissues that get filled with blood, and they grow as the penis grows and gets harder. It also grows and gets harder and changes and shifts its texture, what makes it, much more sensitive also. So it's not that wrong that the penis and the yoni are, or once were the same. So, also a historical, cultural thing that also supported that many females are not that familiar and not that super content with their sexuality and their bodies, and they don't know so much, is also the beauty standards, for example. Yeah, like suppressing beings can happen by telling them they are not good enough. And this is the message that women received over hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. We are not good enough, and we are not as worthy as men are. And there, for example, is really a cruel story. There was one woman from a tribe out of South Africa, 1810. And she was brought to London. So a man brought her to London, and he had a freak show in London, and he exhibited her. So, first of all, that was very humiliating because she was not treated like a human being. She was like exotic. And her name was Sarah Bartman, and she's known as the Hottentotten Venus. Maybe you've heard of this before. A woman with a body shape that was very uncommon for the Western world. Because of that, it was possible to exhibit her and to show her around like in a museum. She had a very well-formed ass, and she had very tall inner labias. So she was shown naked, and all the people were just, oh wow, this primitive being, like primitive beings look like that. So what happened over time is that especially longer inner labias were kind of, just meant to be ugly and primitive. And also in anatomic books, like the labias were called big lips, the outer lips, big lips, small lips. Well, if you saw my pussy, it's the other way around. So I have, more tissue on the inner labia than on the outer labia. So I also thought something must be wrong with me because my physical shape did not really match that. And it did not really match what I've seen in any porn films. So I also thought like anything might be wrong. Which also turned out to be a message for female beings that are not shaped like a specific type. Something must be wrong. And there are really doctors who made millions and millions and millions with surgery to just cut that labia. They would just cut them off. And the women did it to kind of fit in a specific frame and to a specific picture. To be beautiful, to be worthy, to be lovable. To also feel secure in their bodies. And that's a pity. So because the inner labias are also part of all the pleasurable system that females have. And just think about the body as a whole system. Like we have this pelvic nerves. They go or come from the brain, from the hypothalamus, and they really go down the spine to the unteres Rückenmark. So it's just a bond going down. And then from here, in the female bodies, there are thousands of nerves spreading out onto different areas of our bodies. And in male bodies, it's more a bit more a bundle that goes also to the penis and testicles. But the female bodies are much, much, much more sensitive. Just the glands of the clitoris has 8,000 nerves, and that's more than double than the penis in total has. And Well, we as females, we have a big disadvantage because the biggest part of our genital area is inside our bodies, so we don't really reach it. And the male bodies, they really carry their penis outside of the body, and little boys start exploring every part of it. Maybe not the anus, but yeah, the whole erectile tissues. And we get to know our clitoris, and that there's a whole universe inside of us is a bit, yeah, less easy to explore. So these nerves are just waiting to be stimulated. And it's a whole communication system. It's like if we start awakening these nerves, the communication is like, yeah, much more dense. And what also was one big fuel that always kept me going exploring my sexuality was like, I'm sure that through my sexuality and my sexual activity and through knowing my body and knowing all the functions, that I can reach altered states, so that it is connected with my awareness. And nowadays there are scientific proofs that all the hormones that, yeah, magically overflow our bodies through arousal states can bring us into altered states too, which is very beautiful to explore. And it's a way to get there also. Yeah. So if we think about that, our whole system, or that we can really reach transcendent states, it just needs a very good setting for us. And as we get to know sexuality happens through penetration, and the male body penetrates the female body, so penis and vagina are fitting together somehow, and we have this penetrative movement, and then it happens and everyone is super happy. And we as females have much more capacity to reach different states, and also a tremendous variety of orgasms that we can experience. And we can practice that, and we can learn that also. So it's not only the clitoris who does the whole magic. So there are parts inside that are quite pleasurable to get to know too. And as I shared, like every female body is different, and our body shapes are different. We are all unique beings, and our vulvas look, yeah, there are not two vulvas that are really similar in the whole world. It's like our face, it's super unique. And with these nerves, it's the same. Like we have this tremendous amount of nerves that are kind of like roots, and even more roots spreading around the whole pelvic area. And not every woman has the same amount of nerves ending on the same spot of their body. So I cannot tell you press here and you will feel the same as I do. So this will not happen. But as you see...
Do you know if for men it is like this?
Like the male bodies and the whole dorsal penis nerve is more a bundle. So it's much more straight. And as females, or the female body is also conceived, like made for giving birth, for example, we need much more nerves in our uterus. So we have more organs, we have more sexual organs than men do. So we have another distribution. So we also have more spots that can be pleasured And I feel like these spots can be empowered. And for me, it's really a way to go to the whole female empowerment, also through empowering our arousal system, which is a bit sleepy, as we don't really get to know it. So, what is very important for the female arousal system is time. So this has an evolutionary aspect also, and it's connected to the autonomous nervous system. So we really need to be very relaxed to increase our arousal. And we really need to feel safe and relaxed. And the erectile tissue, so we have these capillaries inside, Kapillargefäße, and they fill themselves with blood, and then they grow, and it takes time to really get swollen. For most females, it takes more time than for men to get an erection, but we also do get erections. And as I shared, that it is really possible to go through orgasmic states to that we can reach transcendent states. Time and safety is a very important factor for that. And as it was before, when we lived in tribes and we had that sexual experiences and kind of went into a trance state, it was very important to really have the safety and security these times of a man, because if we did that outside, we always needed to be protected, because if we are in our pure ecstasy, then we are in danger, kind of, if any tiger comes around. We really needed to be supported in that, and safety is a big issue for females to really receive these ecstatic states. Yeah. And let me share a little bit about the Kapillargefäße and the whole erectile system that we have, because it's really good to get to know it. So we have this beautiful vulva outside, and underneath these outer lips, we can also feel that on our bodies. If we really press and massage them, we are pressing and massaging the clitoris too, and it is all connected. So it might be very beautiful to just give that also gentle massage and gentle touch, and also awaken the sensitivity. So we don't really necessarily only need to focus on the clitor. So when we learn masturbation, mostly this is the part we concentrate on. But what happens if we only concentrate on the clitor? It might get oversensitive, or it might get a bit numb, and then it needs more stimulation, for example. And as we learn out of experience, most of the time we really learn, okay, now I know the way how to get where I want to go, and then it gets saved in our system, and then we can always follow this way. And if we always follow the same route, there are many things that we don't really perceive. So a recommendation to really empower our pussies is to really be super gentle with them, and intentionally not following the routes we know. And this might be hard, because it's beautiful having an orgasm, and it might feel super relaxing. And if we want to increase our capacity to feel pleasure, and also get more empowerment and more self-awareness, it's really, really a good way to explore with curiosity and massage our genitals without having the aim or the goal of having an orgasm. Because if we don't really go for that and we are not searching it, it might happen, or we might find out many, many ways to get there, and we increase also the capacity to experience other orgasms than the ones we already know. And also, as I shared the inner labia, we have many nerves here, so I feel really sad about this beauty topic that I shared before, because some women really just cutted their nerves off. And also the perineum, like the part between anus and vagina entrance, is also very sensitive and can be very pleasurable. And when I think about what happens in case of childbirth, that this part just gets cut too easily, like it was standard when the birth takes long time to just cut the perineum to make more space for the baby to come out. So there also the pleasure system and the nerves got just cut, without the females knowing that a part of their pleasure system just gets cut. So also there a lack of information, like it's not that important, we can just cut it.
Is that in German Domschnitt?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the cut gets deep into the tissue, and there are several nerve endings that, And it's also possible to massage that and to resensitize it, but it causes damage, of course. Yeah. And like it's a little trauma for the body, and the body stores everything. Like every experience that we make is stored in the body somehow, and every activation of the system or every trauma gets stored, and it's expressed and manifested in tension, for example, or in muscle tensions. And a very relaxed vagina is a vagina that can just, give and receive so much pleasure. And to really get all the tension out of the body. And it's also a psychological part, like the whole tension of shame and fear. And it has also an influence and is also stored. And there are many also transgenerational traumas stored in the whole pelvic area, in the female area. And that's why some women, when they're experiencing specific sexual encounter, for example, that sometimes tears just come, because there are also stored emotions that may want to flow. And it also has something to do about this whole nervous system, like these pelvic nerves, and they then go up the spine to the hypothalamus, and there's also where the emotional center sits. So it's connected. And so maybe if we want to explore more, we can just caress the clitor with a lot of gentleness. And this is also something that I learned after Rambo gave up. And also during my period, when I worked in this sex shop, and I really had access to all the vibrators, the best ones on the market, where I really felt I used that so much that my clitoris got a bit like, well, yeah, it's nice if you touch me, but it's not such a thrill, so I need more. And then I really started claiming back the sensitivity through really gentleness and soft and light touch, and really focusing my awareness on what I feel if I do less. And this might be very miraculous if we just drop into doing less and giving less stimulation, but focusing our awareness on what we feel, and even if it's a tiny little sensation, and even if it's numbness is also a sensation, and it's also allowed to shift and change. So also massaging the inner labia can be very pleasurable. So we don't need to leave that out, even if it's not the most excited part of our vulva. And then when we open that a little bit, here we have the urethra, and also massaging the urethra can be very nice and pleasurable. And on the sides of the urethra, we don't see it here on that model, there are the skin glands that are all supporting the female ejaculation or squirting. Yeah. And then we have the whole vagina entrance. And the whole vagina entrance also communicates with the clitoral bulbs inside. So when they get swollen, also the vagina entrance gets a bit tighter and flexible at the same time, so that every penis fits. It's the perfect match. So it can adapt. It's super smart. Yeah. And then on the inside, we see it here. We have the vaginal canal. And we also have the penis that fits perfectly inside. But we can also use our fingers, of course. And maybe you can see that it also stimulates the bulbs. And if the bulbs are swollen and filled with blood and super sensitive, then of course the penis and penetration can support the whole pleasure and arousal from the inside too. And at the same time, what we see is here we have the Harnröhre, urethra. Here we have the a little tiny part of the anus. And on the female bodies, these parts are very close together. So what might happen is, like, if we go inside the vagina and we go upwards, or we put our finger inside, and on the sides we feel the bulbs of the clitoris. We can feel them, we can massage them from the inside too, or we can go up and massage the G-spot area, which is also erectile tissue. It's also a spongy tissue, and it also gets swollen, and through stimulation it increases the sensitivity. Yeah, and we can go down a bit, and if we go down, there's also a very pleasurable part of the body, also spongy, which is the Bartholomeusdrüse, and this is it supports the lubrication, for example, and it also gets swollen and more sensitive, for example. Yeah, and as these parts are close together, so some females experience, if they really massage the upper part of the vagina, that they feel like, well, it feels a bit like I might need to pee. And because it's close to the urethra and close to the bladder, it might feel a bit like, ooh, it feels a bit like peeing. But this is also why we are not connected with the pleasurable part of it. And sometimes then already a bit of fear or shame comes in. So, I feel if I go on massaging that, I would need to pee. And this might create then tension, and tension does not really support the arousal and the pleasure. Yeah. The same with going down. If we go down and massage down, it might feel like, ooh, maybe I need to poo, because we might stroke our down from the inside also.
Intestines.
Mm-hmm, yeah, and it's also possible to kind of reframe that feeling of it's unfamiliar and it's a bit weird, and we can reframe that and alchemize it into a very pleasurable experience. Yeah. So, and there's a lot more. This is also like just a little part of everything, and of the interconnectedness of our system, of our bodies. Yeah. And yeah, what else? What else is there to share? Yeah, so my recommendation, or what I have experienced myself, and I'm still on my journey and it will never end, I guess, is to go on exploring and go on exploring and go on exploring with curiosity. So what I feel super beautiful is to always explore with this a little bit of infantile innocence. And if I'm not looking for the next orgasm, and if it's around the corner, and I'm really exploring different parts of my body, I just start to feel more. And I also started to have a better access to all my emotions and to the stories that are stored in my body. As, for example, every bad sexual encounter I ever had has left an information in my body. And it's also okay to acknowledge that. And it's super beautiful to get to know my body better and to get to know the whole system better, and to also get further and further in my sexual development. And what happened is that over time I really learned, or it just happened that my ability to experience different types of orgasms just increased. And that at one point it did not really stop at the clita and the clitoris, which to me makes a beautiful orgasm, but also a little bit fast and flat in comparison to the orgasmic states that I can reach now. And they really go higher and higher. And sometimes I really experience that I feel it in the brain, that it really kind of stimulates my whole brain. Yeah. And what also happens if before, during, and after sexual stimulation is that whole flood of different hormones flowing through the body, which is basically a drug, or it can be compared with a drug, because there's dopamine, and dopamine makes us like excited and curious and like excited to get more. And there are opiate, which makes us less sensitive for pain, or which allows us to transform pain into pleasure. And oxytocin, which is the bonding and love hormone itself. And what I also read in many books and experienced myself is that if we really reach and allow ourselves to explore our pleasure range, that we feel much more connected, we feel much more centered, much more in our power also. And connecting to our sexuality allows us to also be more connected to our boundaries. So what we are really, really willing to do or not to do, and our desires. So nowadays I'm in contact with my yoni, like during the day, like always. And she tells me what's good, and I trust her. And she gives very clear signals to me in everyday situations too. Like when I feel like, shall I do this or shall I do that? And I really can just check in on my body wisdom and trusting my body wisdom, and it shows me the way, and then it leads me to the best possible experience.
Do you listen to the whole yoni or to a certain part of the yoni?
It depends. It depends. So what I do in my daily practice, I started a few years ago to first I really just touched my yoni without any aim, and I do that every night before I fall asleep and every morning when I wake up. I just touch it because I have a relationship with my yoni, and she's my best lover and I'm her best lover, and I really nourish this relationship, and I take her for serious. I take care of her and she takes care of me too, so it's a win-win situation. And when I started touching her, automatically my awareness increased, and also my self-awareness has increased. Mein Selbstbewusstsein ist gewachsen und hat sich gesteigert dadurch. And then I learned a lot and trained a lot with the pelvic floor muscles, which is also a very important structure in our bodies, supporting our whole being and also supporting our pleasure. So then I started playing with the contractions of my pelvic floor muscles, so that today it's possible for me to arouse myself here and now only through concentration and focusing and movement of the pelvic floor muscles. And I can also, for example, I learned how just to move the clitoris a little bit with using the pelvic floor muscles, and that can be very nice sitting in the bus and just moving the clitoris a little bit. So I really trained myself to get to have that connection, like always running. So I'm really most of the time always communicating also with her and with the body, and I don't need the touch anymore, although I often do it and I really like to do it. But like the whole awareness just increased, so that I can feel different parts of my yoni just through focusing on it. And as I trained and learned through touch how the sensations feel like, I really feel a lot more than I felt 3 or 4 years before. So by really exploring and touching and being curious and not going for the like fast food orgasm, for example. Yeah.
And you do sometimes fast food.
I love fast food from time to time, and there's nothing wrong with it. I also brought one of my best friends. It's not called Rambo, but yeah, I still use vibrators from time to time. Because sometimes it's just beautiful to get that fast relaxation, and there's nothing bad about it. I just want to emphasize that we can get addicted, and then it's a long way to get sober again. And I also brought 2 of my dildos, because like for us it's a bit harder to reach all the areas inside, and if we come to the A spot, that is kind of really on the back side of the vagina and over the cervix, or the cervix itself. If we really want to explore more and deeper, we really need to find a good position to do that. Like I could do it in the position that I'm now in, very good. I would reach many parts very good, also stimulating the anus. But sometimes it's not that easy to reach all the parts, and it might be also nice to use a dildo, but then I recommend using something that has no vibration, because the vibration then stimulates too much, that we are focused on the stimulation instead of the sensation. And as I shared, also numbness is a sensation, and we can practice to transform that numbness into pleasure, but we need to practice that. And it can be super frustrating, because it doesn't happen overnight. And a dildo can be a very, very good helper to just go inside the body and explore the different parts. As most of the parts are very sensitive, and they react if they get like pressure. Like there are many spots that are super thrilled to receive pressure, and the very common or typical or known penetration movement does not always give pressure to certain spots. It does, but maybe not always. Depends on which position we are in. So a dildo can be a very good friend and a very good helper. There are different shapes. These are like more C-shaped to reach the G spot area, or maybe the A spot area too. And what is also possible to practice arousal and pleasure is to find some spots that are kind of appealing, interesting, and if we don't feel that much, we can also, for example, stroke them, these parts, and at the same time stimulating the clitoris a little bit, and then these two get connected. So then the pleasure gets connected to the area that you are also pleasuring, that is not so pleasurable yet. But it's practice, yeah, practice and training. Yeah, and there are many, many, many possibilities. And also, if women, like, I sometimes get asked the myth or the myth of female ejaculation or squirting. Like, is it possible? Can every woman do it? Or can every woman have a vaginal orgasm? So first of all, like, yes, we are all kind of made out of the same material. So in general, yes. And no, for some it's harder. And it also depends on the whole nervous system, how easy it is to access, and also the whole emotional and psychological realm that is influencing this is, let's say, the most important part to also to work on, allowing ourselves to experience more pleasure. We are not used to that.
I'm curious to hear your opinion, how would you differentiate an exalted woman, sorry, it's actually a long question what I want to ask. It's like about the psychology between men and women, like understanding that their nervous system is dividing differently between one another. And so I feel like the whole empowerment that you're bringing, is about educating about pleasure and about how that can center us and how that can, alter not only our state but also our perception of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so my question is like, if we have a woman that is exalted in her pleasure and a man that is exalted in his pleasure.
What does exalted mean in German?
It is like opened up.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, like, what would be basically the difference, in your opinion, if you could give maybe a guess, or maybe what would be the difference between a man and a woman in their full power, in their full sexual power, in their perception of the world? Does that make sense?
In their perception of the world. I think my opinion is there's no difference. So basically, why it is important for me to talk about the power and empowerment is that I feel if we accept that we are sexual beings, we also accept that we are creative beings.
And by empowering our sexuality as a force that brings life, like sexuality for me is the most creative power that we can own also. And I feel there's no difference because men create life, women create life. Just the social cultural conditionings are very different. And at the same time, I feel that there are many men who also do not know so much about their sexuality. They just have another access. But there are many men that don't know that they can ejaculate without having an orgasm and having orgasms without ejaculation, because for them they learn that it belongs together and that it is one, and basically it's not. And also men are able to experience multi-dimensional or multiple orgasms, for example, or full body orgasms. So is there a difference?
No, because we talk about like women can have 8 different orgasms or maybe
More than 8.
And,
Yeah.
and what about like men? Even though we're then being told that we can have more than the orgasm that we typically know of, it's still less than a woman. And I wonder, like for example, that your nervous system is more spread out, and for us it's more like a bundle.
Mm-hmm.
If that maybe has a repercussion in our psyche.
In our psyche? Well, I would say that the female system is much more conditioned on bonding, as we are also much more influenced through oxytocin, for example, which is the bonding hormone, the love hormone, the connection hormone. So I feel that there is a difference, yes. But
And for men, what would be different?
we have more of this, for example. So there are difference of our hormone systems.
But do you know what, does men have done more of something else, or do we just have less?
It's just a different mixture, and we have all the same but different. Like it's a different cocktail.
Mm-hmm. Do you know the cocktail of men?
Yeah, and it depends on which state you are. But you have more testosterone, for example. Also, female bodies can increase their testosterone. Yeah. Which also supports, for example, arousal and so on. And there are also studies that female beings that are in their menopause can get injections of testosterone, and then they get their libido more driven, for example. But yeah, it's just a different cocktail.
But like to have, for example, that women have more nervous endings for pleasure than men?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
right,
true.
no?
That's true.
So how does that affect our psyche?
Well, that's really a good point and a super interesting point. So what I feel is that like nervous system is made for communication, right? If we just keep it to the base. Like it communicates with the brain, with the emotions, with the mind and so on. And yeah, maybe women are more, they have maybe a different variety. As female beings, might be known as having more direct access to the emotions, for example.
This is really socialized.
It is a lot, yeah. And at the same time, if I just think about that, we have so much more nerves, so much more. We also, our system has another density of communication. So that could be an explanation. But I would not say that I exactly know about that. And I feel that every...
Just like, there are no role models around me in my side.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, And what can I look up to? From where do I feel? I'm looking for models that inspire me.
What would you like to explore or learn?
Well, just like to like I'm curious, like, you know, like for example, when you look at sports, you have like athletes and you have like, you know, the top players, and you kind of know, like, of course, you know, the world records are getting pushed and pushed and pushed over the years,
Yeah.
but you can learn so much from those athletes. You can see their bodies are being developed, and you have an understanding, like, aha, you know, they're like, their bodies are connected and they know how to function. It's like you can see kind of where your potential lies, or you can choose, like, oh, that's something I want to learn, because you can see that those people have mastered those things. And so I'm like wondering, you know, what is kind of like, where can men go, where can women go?
What do you mean? Where do they can go? Where they can go
Like,
to?
what would be, you know, like a top?
Connected.
Yeah, like again, like in my terms, I call it like an exalted, you know, sexual man or an exalted sexual woman.
Yeah,
You know,
but
that
they are around.
They're integrated
Yeah.
with, you know, emotions, thoughts, spirituality, physicality,
Yeah.
and yeah.
So what I hear is that you would love to have more inspiring
Yeah.
male beings that are super connected to their sexuality,
Yeah.
and that they also share their knowledge and wisdom and their
Yeah.
techniques and explorations,
Yeah.
and for you to
I mean, you know, like tonight, pussy power. Like we're 10, you know. And I just think this as we have learned also, you know, like the pussy has not received enough attention since millennia. Like it's a big issue, and I truly believe that, you know, more people should be here. So yeah, I don't know. I
We
was
need
just
to do that
wanted
again.
Reflect my frustration about, you know, not seeing enough people.
They are all online, sitting on the couch and eating popcorn and chips and having a good time, and maybe masturbating and finding the spots that I just
We
described.
could also hear.
They could, yeah. Yeah, but one.
Is that, do you think, a book like The Multi-Orgasmic Man or something like this?
There are books, and a friend of mine just starts to give workshops and one-on-one coachings on the multi-orgasmic man. So if you want to get to know him, just approach me later. So I knew a few beings, and I'm sure you will find them. Yeah. And what I also would love to emphasize, because that's also how, let's get back to the female perception, that we are like conditioned, like, yeah, we just need to find the right man and he will just give us the best sex ever. And the men are responsible for our orgasms. And this is just not true. So I really recommend exploring on our own and touching and exploring with curiosity male bodies and female bodies, not following your masturbation pattern that you have learned when you just started. Sometimes I ask men, so which hand do you use for masturbation? Or maybe I can ask you.
I use both.
Great! Yeah, great. Yeah.
Started to change direction when I only used one.
Yeah, but there are really like many of us, just like we know, we learn what we know, and what we know is like zuverlässiger Weg somehow, and then we stay with that, and sometimes we lose a bit our openness for everything else. Yeah, and when I hear females like, yeah, no, I don't masturbate, and I don't have issues with sexuality, I like touch and be touched, and then I feel like, yeah, okay, well, but I'm looking for a lover, I really want to have a great lover. and this is what I long for. And then I just start questioning myself, yeah, but how do you know that you really have a good lover if you're not your own lover, and if you don't really know yourself, and yeah, also put your attention to your own pleasure and explore and open up for yourself. Now I want to have a lover who gives it to me, or the prince that comes and saves us.
You're back in
And with his
socialization. Back to Walt Disney.
Back to Walt Disney. Yeah.
I still have to kind of come back to it, you know, how like our nervous system is somehow feedbacking, you know, our sensorial experience, and is then connected to our feelings, thoughts, and like our you know, subjective side from, you know, the objective side. Yeah, I kind of am a bit stubborn, thinking like, yeah, but men must be wired differently than women, you know, because our wiring is different. So there must be somehow just a different way that we experience than women do. Although even maybe in the subjective side, it's the same. Who knows?
Of course, and not just men and women. It's like every being has its complete, unique perception of the world.
Yeah.
And my perspective can never be the same. Even if you were sitting next to me, I would see a completely different image than you will do. So we are unique. Yeah, and we will always be. And I still
And
feel
yet
like
not similar.
if we are much more connected also to the power to create, that's the same. And men also need that empowerment. It's not just that women need to be empowered and to have access and to support that helps us to know ourselves better and be aware of who we are and what miracles we can bring to the world, the same as men do. Yeah. So we kind of should better learn to dance and move together.
And as you said before, I also think that self-exploration is probably really the main part. You can go to a very open master or sexual whatever enlightened person, and you hear his story, and you still will have to go back to your body and check out if it's matching what he's saying, or if your body still is a bit different. So there's no way around self-exploration, as you said before.
Yeah, and at the same time, it's really helpful to have support.
Yeah.
And this is why I'm doing my work, because my mission is to support women and men to come back to their authentic sexuality. And sexuality is not sex. So sexuality is like the whole force and the movement and the aliveness and the creative power that this energy stores. Like connecting to the sexuality is much more wider than connecting to sexual techniques, for example. But I love to support, most of the time I support women in getting to know their bodies better, expanding their capacity to feel, and whenever they get frustrated because they don't move forward, then I'm by their side and I say, okay, but let's move on, even though nothing happens now, let's move on. And this is where the support happens, when the frustration and the stuckness is there. Yeah. Because this is the point where most just give up and say, okay, maybe it's not for me, or maybe it's not that important. And then it's really precious to have someone just supporting, saying, okay, now. Yeah.